Rise Up for Abortion Rights is a nationwide movement calling on people to participate in mass, nonviolent, sustained protests to demand that the federal government restore nationwide legal abortion.
Can you explain how abortion is a constitutional right and a civil right?
Yeah, so the 14th Amendment has as part of it an equal protection clause, and that I'm trying to break it down. that means that women, in order to be full human beings, should have rights to control their lives, including their private lives, and this is a direct violation of that. And what we're seeing in recent decisions made by the Supreme Court is a direct contradiction of both the equal protection under the law of the 14th Amendment and the Establishment Clause, the separation of church and state. And we're seeing both of those be shredded by decisions, both the decision that they made regarding Roe and the decision that they made in reference to Maine and the use of public funds for private religious schools, and the decision that they made today regarding prayer in schools by the football coach. So, yeah.
I've heard that, because I'm also trying to understand for myself how it relates to privacy and how privacy is a constitutional right, and how abortion also falls under that. Can you explain further?
So, people have talked about that it's a private medical decision. It's not something you do in public, right? In the same way that what happens in your bedroom is covered under privacy. What you do in a doctor's office or the medication that you take to get an abortion, that's a private decision that the government isn't part of. The government isn't a part of when you take your antibiotic. They're not a part of when you go to get your insulin medication.
On Friday, when they made the announcement of the opinion, what was your reaction? How did you feel?
Profound outrage and fury. Like, my lack of shock didn't soften the blow. I remember being like, there's only one word for what we just experienced, and illegitimate. What the Supreme Court decision was illegitimate. The Supreme Court showed themselves to be illegitimate. Forced motherhood is illegitimate, and I felt profound fury and deep sadness for the women in 8 states that basically immediately lost the right to abortion.
What is your greatest fear for the outcomes of the upcoming weeks or upcoming year with this decision? What impact do you see it having?
If we don't act, it's no exaggeration to say that women will die. It's no exaggeration to say that the trajectory we're on is one where women will be driven deeper into poverty, where women are trapped in abusive relationships because of their lack of access to the right to abortion, that, girls will drop out of school, that dreams and futures will be foreclosed, that children will be forced by the state to have children against their will. Those are just some of it. I mean, I also, they've made it clear that our wombs are going to be sites of surveillance by the state. That they, when abortion isn't legal, it's a crime. So I'm foreseeing women, if we don't stop this, being imprisoned for either inducing their own abortion or miscarriages. This has already happened in this country. that is but a taste of the pileup of shattered lives of women, of girls, and that this is a Christian fascist program that is not going to slow down. It's not going to stop on its own. This win is an accelerant for them. And the concurrent opinion by Clarence Thomas, show they are going after contraception. For anybody who is doubting that, he made it clear. They're going after LGBTQ rights. He made that clear. Gay marriage, gay sex, they are going after it. And they're not going to stop unless, we stop them. And we can. We can.
What are your thoughts about the protests over the weekend? Was it to your expectation, or do you think more people need to come out? What were your thoughts on the overall scene?
I heard so many heart-wrenching stories about what happens when you don't have access.
Would you mind sharing some of the more impactful stories that you had heard?
Yeah. I think the hardest to hear is the story of Araceli Herrera, who traveled from Texas to participate. When she was 17, she was gang raped in Mexico City, and at that time, you could not get a legal abortion, and she went to the doctor, and she was told she couldn't get an abortion. And she told the story about her child asking who her father was, and that she loved him so much, but she couldn't bring herself to tell him, and that she had to not finish school. She was going to be a marine biologist. She loves animals. And that she couldn't finish school, that she was driven deeper into poverty. She was already really poor, which is why she wanted to have an abortion. But her story was told again and again. People likewise told stories about their lives being saved by abortion. Mothers who, very much wanted to have a child, but their child had a fetal abnormality, where they were sick themselves and the abortion saved their life. Stories of teenagers who got abortions that were able to just live full lives. There were so many young people, 13, 14-year-olds, their futures just getting started, filled with such deep fear for their future and disdain for those of us who've allowed this to happen. And so, one of the messages that really has been sticking with me is that we can't wait and hope that this gets resolved. We can't wait and hope and rely on elections or hope for some good compromise to come out, because that's how we got here. And speaking out and being in the streets and being unrelenting and having society mass struggle, that's what won us Roe in the first place. It's what won us gay marriage. It's what won us civil rights. It's what's even won us the right to vote, was mass struggle. And so that's what's needed now.
With the protests that are going on, abortion, of course, is among the most polarizing issues that I've covered as a journalist. What do you feel is lacking on the other side? What do they not understand about what abortion rights mean?
We are actually the majority, and this is frequently seen as some kind of issue that can be both sides. And in particular, the media puts equal weight on two sides of the argument. In fact, I should take that back. They put greater weight on those who have historically opposed this right than they have on those who seek to defend it or now restore it. Anytime you go on a show with someone else, there has to be someone with an opposing view. And there can't be a conversation with someone who calls you a murderer. There can't be a conversation who sees you as nothing more than an incubator and not a full person. So I don't really have much to say with those who are deep believers. That doesn't mean that I don't think that you should have conversations with people. I think that's important. But I don't think that we're going to win over those who are organized around this, who see forced motherhood as a critical part of an overall codifying of a Christian America. So that's my opinion. I do think that I pay more attention than speaking to the vast majority of people, which is the pro-choice majority, for them to see that we can't be silent. We need to be visible. We don't need to accept this defeat. We don't need to surrender. Because we have a heart and we know the damage that will be caused by this, we do feel deep sadness and we should feel deep fury. But that doesn't mean that we need to allow this. The best time to have stood up was before this happened. It's easier to keep a law in the books than it is to regain one. But the second best is right after it happens. So now is the time for us to be in the streets, to be unrelenting, to be nonviolent, yes, but very, very determined, daring, and courageous. Because the lives and futures of girls that have yet to be born hang in the balance.